Welcome to the American Football Iceberg video. Grab a snack while we dive into the strange and the mundane of the great American game. First layer. The Heidi game. On November 17, 1968, one of the greatest comebacks and finishes would be done by the Oakland Raiders against the New York Jets. However, this stunning finish would be missed by everyone watching on the TV due to a kids' movie called Heidi. Heidi was to be aired at 7 p.m., but as the fourth quarter dragged on, the NBC producers realized that the game would go on way past 7 p.m. They then decided to cut the game off with a minute left in the fourth quarter. The Raiders would score 2 touchdowns against the Jets in one of the greatest rivalry games in the history of American football. The final score would be displayed during the airing of the movie. Football games following this controversy would not always be aired to their conclusion. Other professional sports leagues would require language and contracts that games would be required to be aired to their conclusion. The Deshaun Watson allegations. In 2019, Deshaun Watson was coming off a great season. He was a young quarterback showing elite talent, someone the Texans were undoubtedly going to plan to build around for the next decade. 2020 is when the cracks would begin to show. Locker room drama with J.J. Watt, losing DeAndre Hopkins, and losing so many close games landed the Texans 4-12. It would be his last season with Houston. The sexual assault and battery allegations from 23 different women would suspend him for 11 games and give him a fine of $5 million. He has always denied these allegations. Before the lawsuits were settled, he was traded, though, to the quarterback graveyard known as the Cleveland Browns on a 5-year, $230 million guaranteed contract, the largest guaranteed sum at the time. He has never played the same since the allegations came out, either being injured or leading the Browns offense to be the worst in the league. Personally, as a Texans fan, I can't really describe how I feel about him without this video being taken down. I just thank the football gods for CJ Stroud. Deflategate. This is perhaps the most well-known controversy in the NFL, the alleged, intentional deflation of footballs to make it easier for Tom Brady to handle in the 2015 AFC Championship game. The New England Patriots during the Belichick and Tom Brady dynasty had been accused of cheating before, another famous gate being Spygate, where they were caught videotaping coaches' signals to players. Deflategate was much more high-profile, unusual, and also confusing. First of all, the balls were announced to be under referee inspection at halftime. The former NFL referee Gary Austin famously announced that 11 out of the 12 balls being used by the Patriots were measured 2 pounds per square inch below the minimum amount. But this would later be contradicted by other reports where there were only 5 balls underinflated to this degree. These balls were reinflated at halftime to the league minimum, allegedly. After the game, the media circus would begin. Both Belichick and Tom Brady denied any wrongdoing and were seemingly compliant to any investigation being done by the NFL. Various anonymous sources and reports claimed that almost all the footballs were underinflated, and were underinflated to a degree much lower than it claimed initially by officials. Video even surfaced of a Patriots employee taking the balls in the locker room for 90 seconds before later emerging. One of the game balls were never recovered, and it has been claimed that one of the refs was fired for being caught selling numerous game balls, but this has been denied by the NFL. The Colts GM Ryan Grigson claimed he had notified the NFL of strange ball appearances of Patriots game balls in Week 11 of the regular season, with the ball being coated in a sticky substance and also severely underinflated. He claimed that there was a sting operation being done by the NFL, and the balls had their PSA logged prior to the games. But this was contradicted multiple times by the NFL and other sources. The Ravens also supposedly warned the NFL regarding underinflated footballs, but these claims have been denied by that organization. The Wells Report is a time bomb. It is a 243-page document prepared by Ted Wells, an attorney who was hired by the NFL to get to the truth of the matter around Deflategate. 4 months after the initial craziness of Deflategate, the report was produced and claimed it was more probable than not that the balls were intentionally underinflated. It also determined that Tom Brady was likely generally aware of the cheating. Another media craze would erupt in the aftermath of the report. Ted Wells would continue to defend the report. Tom Brady had no comment. Others praised it as definitive evidence, while another think tank would claim the report to be deeply flawed and not considering how much time the ball had to warm up and rise up to normal pressures. To make this section a bit shorter, let's skip to Tom Brady's suspension. Despite some of the controversy with the Wells report, the NFL would suspend Tom Brady for 4 games the next season without pay. The Patriots paid a fine of about $1 million and lost their first-round draft pick for the 2016 draft. Tom Brady would appeal the decision, which would result in his suspension being vacated, but was ultimately reinstated by the U.S. Court of Appeals. Tom Brady would sit out the 4 games, come back, and finish the regular season 14-2, ultimately winning the Super Bowl against the Atlanta Falcons and be named the Super Bowl MVP. Deflategate would go without incident until February 2022, where a sports journalist named Mike Florio would reveal information the NFL hid and destroyed data that would have exonerated the Patriots. Additionally, he advised that 11 of the 12 balls were not outside the predicted range of the ideal gas law, with one only being slightly below. In the end, all the data paints the NFL front office as either incompetent or malicious, or perhaps a mix of both. The Damar Hamlin incident. On January 2nd, 2023, during a Week 17 Monday Night Football game against the Bengals, Hamlin collapsed on the field at 8:56 p.m. This would happen after a seemingly routine tackle of wide receiver T. Higgins. Notably, however, T. Higgins did hit Hamlin in the chest with his right shoulder. After making the tackle, Hamlin would get up for a second before falling down and passing out. The incident would later be ruled a cardiac arrest, and thanks to the quick actions of the first responders, his heartbeat would be restored on the field. He would be admitted to the hospital for several days. Several months later, he would be cleared to return to play football, which he publicly stated he would wish to continue playing. He has since returned to continue making tackles and even an interception in the seasons following his recovery. While the condition which caused the cardiac arrest was extremely rare, it highlighted how some of the violence within the sport can cause life-changing and even life-ending injuries to those who participated, especially for younger, less experienced players in high school and college football. The Ravens are the original Browns. This incident likely refers to what is known as the Move of 1995. The move was a controversial decision by owner Art Model to move the Cleveland Browns to Baltimore, Maryland. This decision was unexpected, as Art Model had previously promised to keep the Browns in Cleveland and had publicly criticized the Colts for moving from Baltimore to Indianapolis. Despite the rising valuation of the Cleveland Browns, Art Model and the organization were financially unstable and also in debt. The Cleveland Indians, which had shared the stadium with the Cleveland Browns, would eventually leave the stadium in 1993. This heavily impacted the revenue of that stadium. Art Model would even try to put a few $1 million worth of personal loans under the Browns organization, which he would be sued for by a minority stake owner of the organization. After a failed attempt for a new sin tax from the city that would have helped renovate the stadium or build a new one, Art would tell the board that there was no future in Cleveland. After announcing the move, the city of Cleveland sued Art Model for breaching the lease of the Cleveland Stadium. Fans were in uproar, with protests following the Browns at several games after their announcement. The fraught season was one of the few times Steelers and Browns fans would come together, nearly all sporting gear with the term Muck Fodell. In the aftermath of the suits, protests, and gnashing of teeth, a settlement would arise. Model would agree to keep the Browns' legacy in Cleveland if the city would drop the suit. Due to the NFL insisting on a replacement of Cleveland Stadium, and the fact none of the interested potential owners being ready to take over the organization, it was decided to inactivate the Browns for a period of 3 years. The team would be revived in 1999 with a new stadium. In exchange, Art Model would be granted a new franchise in Baltimore. The organization and players would join Model in the move with the Ravens. This is why some fans still claim the original Browns moved to Baltimore, while the Cleveland Browns are an entirely different team. Art Model would eventually be directed to sell the Ravens by the NFL after facing continued financial hardships to Steve Bisciotti. He is still despised in Cleveland. When he passed away in 2012, the Browns organizations did not commemorate his passing. The Modell Law is a law named after Art Modell, which advises that no owner of a professional sports team in Ohio playing in a tax-supported stadium could go elsewhere without an agreement with the city in which it plays unless that city is given 6 months advance notice with an opportunity to buy the team. It was recently used in the January of 2025 after attempts to move this team's stadium to outside the city. A kicker won MVP in 1982. In 1982, Mark Mosley became the first and only kicker to win the NFL MVP. 1982 season was a strike-shortened season, with only 9 games being played instead of the usual 16. He scored 23 straight field goals from 1981 to 82, had a 95% accuracy rating, and was responsible for 76 points the entire season. He would also score 2 field goals and 3 extra point attempts in Super Bowl 17, where interestingly, a fullback would win the Super Bowl MVP. Tanking. Tanking is a term used to describe a team which is intentionally losing to get a better draft pick. In the NFL, whoever has the worst season record typically will get the first round pick, which will normally be the best player available in the draft. Tanking normally will happen late in the season for a team that doesn't have a chance to make the playoffs. The Madden Curse. The Madden Curse is a reference to how the cover athlete of the video game franchise Madden NFL typically has a bad or mediocre season after being the cover athlete. Some examples of the curse include Peyton Hillis, who missed half of the season with an injury and famously attributed his poor season to the Madden Curse, and also Antonio Brown, whose seasons following 2019 deserve a whole story of their own. The curse has declined in popularity, however, as Patrick Mahomes seems to have broken the curse with the Super Bowl win following his cover feature. Thank you for watching part 1 of the Iceberg video. Part 2 will be coming out soon. Make sure to like and subscribe for that next part. Thank you again, 1 Point Safety Nation, for supporting me throughout this whole 1 Point Safety search and journey. I really appreciate all the support you guys give me, and I'll see you on the next one.